Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack Garraway Fyson, otherwise known as Science Gecko, and it has been some time. I've been taking a break from YouTube in order to focus on my bachelor degree studies. I've now finished my dissertation, so hopefully I will be getting my degree shortly. But for now, I can focus entirely on YouTube, which I am looking greatly forward to. Anyway, I just wanted to alert you all of how it has been and alert you that I am going to be continuing. But today, I would like to discuss a concept that's interested me for a while, and it's been with me since I became like this, so when I was 13. And that's the concept of genius. Now, some of you may be aware, I did a video, a short, about intelligence in general, discussing the concepts of IQ and the difference between intelligence and IQ in general. But genius is a different thing entirely, and that's why it's interested me so much. Specifically, the difference between a made genius and a born genius. Whether or not these two things exist is entirely up for debate. There are people that don't believe in genius. They believe that simply intelligence is a spectrum and genius is a social construct that comes from our human need to put people on a pedestal. Our human need to feel like, well, there's no need to really try, you're just not a genius. Only the geniuses can pursue mathematics to the highest degree or solve physical problems beyond the scope of human or typical human imagination. But I think that genius can be made and is a lot less difficult to understand than people typically think. See, a born genius can be characterized as really any genius. It's quite hard to differentiate between a made and a born genius in general. The identifiers of a born genius that I can think of would probably be genetic abnormalities that benefit the intellect. This would be like eidetic memory, for example, or a natural intuition towards mathematics, similar to what Terence Tao had demonstrated at such a young age, being able to abstractly think about mathematics in such a complicated degree that he surpassed his students way before he became a professor. And those are very rare, generally. That's why mathematicians are so rare, because mathematical genius is such a hard thing to come by, and genius itself is stupidly rare. But then you have the concept of a made genius. Now, as a self-taught student, I aspired to achieve an intellect greater than what I initially had. Whether or not I had it or I didn't is up for debate. Perhaps I am genetically gifted in some way to have the intelligence that I do, or perhaps I worked for it. And I tend to prefer the latter, because it isn't obvious to me that I particularly had good genetics when it came to intelligence. I simply studied. And this is what got me onto this line of thought. Because could it be possible that you can get to the same level as somebody with these natural abilities like eidetic memory by simply studying and working hard? And I am struggling to see a reason why you can't. Because as I discussed in the short, intelligence is not measured by IQ as far as I'm concerned. IQ is cognitive ability. Now, a high IQ could be argued as a demonstration of a born genius, theoretically. But I don't characterize it as such, because there are people with really high IQs who don't have the aptitude that a genius does, because they simply don't care about the subject, or they are more interested in simply living You have the concept of, street smarts and everything. They aren't interested in academia, they aren't interested in mathematics or the abstract. And then you have people who are not so gifted in IQ, people who are, lower on that spectrum, yet they have an aptitude for abstraction. They have an aptitude for mathematics. They have an aptitude for the complexities of the world. So which one's more of a genius? Is it the one with the high IQ? Or is it the one with the low IQ but the aptitude? See, that's where it starts getting difficult, because when it comes to IQ, there is a clear distinction between somebody who has an IQ of 80, who is practically inept when it comes to actual practical things, to the degree that the army wouldn't even hire them, because they simply can't follow the instructions. And then you have the other end of the spectrum with people who have an IQ of 190, the polymaths. And that's quite a clear distinction. But when you start getting to the smaller differences, say someone with an IQ of 150 and 151, are those statistically significant, or are they just numbers at that point? That's what makes me think intelligence can't be associated with IQ. And this is compounded by the fact that intelligence has factors in it like ingenuity and innovation, as I described in the short. If they have those factors, those can't be measured. Those happen. See, in the psychoanalytical literature, there's the idea that you don't even have an idea. That's a Jungian concept. There's the idea that perhaps we are simply vessels through which complex phenomena can manifest. And that's something to really consider, because could intelligence simply be the ability to permit intellectual, sophisticated ideas to pass through you as a vessel? Well, there's certain levels of historical evidence for that, or more accurately, historical interpretations. For you see, in Greek philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy, they prioritized having a good life. They prioritized the body and living a life that is morally good and also morally truthful. Could that be a way to attain intelligence? By achieving almost a peace of mind? That's kind of like the religious concept of the Buddha, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Maybe I got that wrong. But I'm pretty sure the idea of the Enlightenment was having peace of mind. So, there are these little threads where intelligence appear to demonstrate, or appear to be achieved through different means than just natural talent. Apologies about that. My cat just decided to come in and spend about 10 minutes running around my legs. So I have now completely forgotten where I was. But I will try to salvage this video and still stick on topic. I might just not be particularly coherent, and I may repeat myself. So I apologize in advance for that. Anyway, made geniuses and born geniuses. Ultimately, genius is a very difficult concept to really grasp, and the genesis of which we have no ability to understand. See, our education system is not exactly the greatest at creating geniuses. Ultimately, as a self-taught student, I realised very quickly that the education system is not the strategy for it. I find that if you follow your passions and pursue whatever subject you want to at whatever time, you're going to be more adept at the subject because you're actually motivated. See, school produces workers, and geniuses are not necessarily workers. You can see this in multiple people. See, people like Nietzsche, who I would argue is quite a quite close at least to a genius within philosophy, and even in general. It's not exactly like he was the greatest person in the world. And that's the price that a lot of people pay when they try to go down this path of becoming intellectually sophisticated. Unfortunately, you do lose quite a bit of your humanity. And there is a question of whether or not that is directly associated with genius, or whether or not people are simply doing it wrong. You will know the saying genius and insanity are essentially two sides of the same coin. This may be the case, but I find that if my previous hypothesis, or more accurately, description, that perhaps the Greek philosophers had quite a good avenue for creating a genius, such that modeling yourself to be a successful person will lead you down the path of wisdom and intelligence to such a degree that you do stand out from the crowd. But modern day people don't do that. We see intelligence as the ability to pursue a job, the ability to produce results. Very few people muse. It's actually part of the reason I'm doing this. I believe that being able to lecture a large audience of people about simply your thoughts lay at the essence of what intelligence is. Intelligence is not just the application of cognitive functions in order to be able to produce results. Intelligence is pushing the boundaries of thought itself. In pushing the boundaries, you are going to question everything. There's actually a whole discipline of this within Descartesian philosophy. And I don't necessarily agree with it. I believe that phenomenologically it's important to maintain your status quo. It's important to have an axiomatic structure, as if you eschew an axiomatic structure, you will not be able to really navigate the world. In fact, Descartes pointed this out in his Metaphysics. I believe it's Metaphysics, or is it Meditations? I forget what the book's called. It's literally right there. It's called Meditations. He elaborated that you have to separate the skepticism of doubt from your life. And that is something that the modern people tend not to do. And whether or not that is because we have become more enlightened with the physical universe, or we've become more spiritually inept, is debatable. Nevertheless, to relate this all the way back to geniuses and made geniuses, the avenue to becoming a genius or attaining intellect is very debatable. And the main message I want you to take away from this video is that you are not an idiot. You may not know a lot, and you may not even have the aptitude to study. But if you did, and if you really wanted to, you could very easily attain intelligence. I do have a belief, and it is a belief of myself, that everything can be understood intellectually. A religious experience, for example. And when I say intellectually understand, I do not mean reduced down to insignificance. When I say intellectually understand, I mean be able to relate and be able to understand how and why the person is experiencing that, and also why it has merit. Because that's truly understanding. If you reduce something down to its insignificance, then you don't understand, you simply know, and you have merely rationalized a way out of considering a particular piece of phenomena, which is not productive for an intellectual study. And I believe a genius wouldn't do that. Well, there is the question, is a genius a polymath? Or is a genius something entirely different? I honestly don't know. The whole nature of genius has so many webs in it that it's very difficult to be able to distinguish what one is and what isn't. There are multiple depictions of genius throughout media. You have Sherlock Holmes, you have Patrick Jane in The Mentalist. I don't know if he's classed as a genius. You have people like House in House MD. One of the most popular demonstrations of what I'm describing between the made and the born genius would be cast from The Elite, with Ayano Koji and Sake Nagi. They each embody what the author believed a maiden-born genius would be. Obviously, because it's anime, these are exaggerated. These are exaggerated and also symbolic representations of a class of phenomena that approximately depict what a genius would be, or a made genius. But that's still worthy of note. It's very interesting how we create these figures, but they're never exactly right. They never depict intelligence exactly right, and it's because intelligence is not something to be replicated. Intelligence is something beyond replication. It is a transcendental phenomenological experience. And that's what makes people. That's what makes us the sophisticated beings we are. It's what gave us tools. And not everyone can harness it, and I have never been able to understand why. Anyway, I would say that's a reasonable place to end. I apologise, this video, my first video back, was interrupted by my cat. But I hope that you have gained something, and I look forward to continuing to do this. And look, even though this video is atrocious, I have been looking at my analytics, and not many of you are subscribed. I can't blame you. I have not been around for a while, but I intend to do this a lot more. So I would really appreciate your support. Obviously, you don't have to. But just consider it at least, especially if you enjoy listening to me waffle about utter nonsense. Anyway, with that, I shall bid you all adieu.